Great, so we're on. Hey guys, welcome everyone. Hopefully a lot of the community members will join. So I'm going to first give you a brief overview on how the event will proceed forward. First we'll have a first part where we have an intro to Elrond, how Elrond began, what we are trying to achieve, and so forth. The second part will focus on the architecture parts, what we've achieved, what the milestones were. The third part will be the part where we do the real testnet demo. We bootstrap the nodes and you see how the network behaves live. And then after all that, we will also try to do an AMA session and answer some of the questions that we have with the community and so forth. So I'll first just begin and start telling you a bit about how Elrond began. The idea with Elrond was that we noticed how Ethereum took off. Ethereum basically took off a lot faster than people anticipated, and this was still Q4 2017, and at that point we were already researching what was happening in the space and were very aware of the literature and very up to date with what was happening, and then also very aware of what the different startups were trying in the space. So the idea with Elrond was, if you could start from scratch and rebuild the blockchain piece by piece as you would rebuild a Lego house, how would you do it? What would be the most optimal way of achieving really high performance? And so by trying to reason against that question, we came up with something very interesting, which resulted in a 1,000-fold improvement in throughput, transaction execution speed, and then transaction cost. And I think it's very, very important to underline the milestone we've achieved with this. The idea is also to underline a bit of what this means for the ecosystem, and if such a solution works, how the blockchain space might look in the next couple of years. So as I've mentioned, we started in October 2017. We released the first version of the technical paper in May 2018. This was extremely interesting and exciting for us. Then we moved forward and released the prototype in July 2018, and then after that we made the prototype open source in November, and now we are releasing a major improvement, which is the testnet. So what I would touch upon is a few points regarding the team. We formed a team which sticked to the project. We tried to find people with which we could build rockets. We keep repeating this because it seems to be true, and it has worked really well. This has been probably the most important thing that has kept Elrond in place. So all this effort has been due to a very, very productive collaboration from the whole team, and I think you'll see part of the results in the coming minutes. Another important improvement which I want to underline is that our reasoning was that it will be very, very difficult to build something from scratch and build something which brings not an incremental improvement but a very radical improvement. And we think that the improvement Elrond brings to the blockchain space is very similar to the performance improvement the internet transitioned to when it moved from dial-up to broadband. And as I'm sure many of you know, this transition made the whole difference. Before broadband, you could not build a lot of applications, and many of the applications that were built during the .com died because they did not have the infrastructure performance and the market to sustain them. What we think is probably the most important thing we can bring to the blockchain space right now is this type of architecture improvement. Now, when we began Elrond, we thought a lot about how things would look on the long run, and we've not tried to come up with something that just bring a 2 or 3x improvement compared to the status quo, so compared to Bitcoin or Ethereum, but rather we tried to come up with something that would bring 2 orders of 3 or 3 orders of magnitude improvement. And the idea with this was that even if you come up with something which gives you an advantage for 3 months or 6 months, the solution will not be able to prevail in the long run if it does not bring a significant enough improvement. So this was the idea with Elrond. There has been a very, very interesting process in building everything, and I'm sure you'll hear about all of this. But tonight we want to share some of the milestones which we think are very important, not only for the Elrond project and for the community, but also for the entire blockchain space. So I would like to let Radu share some information on the prototype and what we've tried to do with that.
Okay, hello. We started working on a prototype shortly after we have finished our white paper in order to validate our core hypothesis in our white paper. We have chosen Java as the primary language because we were skilled in Java, and there were lots of libraries for crypto and for peer-to-peer, and it seemed to be the fastest way to go forward. Our first milestone was to create a basic blockchain where we had everything working, like blockchain, like accounts, like transactions, like validations, everything, nothing mocked. Second, we wanted to implement our consensus, our secure proof of stake consensus, and then to implement sharding. First, we started transaction sharding, and then we wanted to do the state sharding. Secure proof of stake and adaptive state sharding are our core components. Finally, we wanted to benchmark our transactions, and in our prototype, we saw that we could exceed 1,000 transactions per second with 10 shards. This way, we could validate our initial hypothesis that secure proof of stake with adaptive state sharding would work in the future. In retrospect, everything seems quite easy right now, but we wrote more than 70,000 lines of code for our node, for our wallet, and for our statistics manager there. Our prototype was more complicated than most of the prototypes for the blockchain right now, and I would say also most of the testnets that are until now. We learned a lot of lessons. We have seen where the bottlenecks and where the limitations of Java and of our peer-to-peer library were then, and we could improve that in our testnet. End of July 2018, we released our prototype to the public, and end of November 2018, we made everything open source. This is it for our prototype. I'm going to leave my other colleagues to speak about the testnet.
Yeah, so I will first jump in. Just want to give you some brief information which I have missed at first. So we are here with the whole team. You'll see we have a few cameras and they will switch. We're in the office, and you'll see as each one of us presents, we'll give the name, and then we'll continue the conversation. So yeah, back to Adrian. He will basically give you an overview on the testnet and what we've tried to do with that.
Okay, so going forward from the prototype, we had a really risky and bold decision to make. We've decided to rewrite everything from scratch, this time in Go. At first we had to choose between several languages. We finally ended up with just two of them, Rust and Go. And because of the ecosystem, of the tools, of the libraries available, we finally decided to go forward with Go. We've applied all the lessons we've learned in the prototype. This became apparent in the way we've implemented the new code in the architecture. We've also changed a few things in order to improve the communication, also the performance and stability of the network. Also, we've improved a lot our way of working. Previously with the prototype it was a bit hectic, but afterwards we decided that we need a more structured way of working, so we decided to have at least 2 reviewers for each change in the code. We have created the unit tests for every piece of code, and we try to keep the coverage above 85%. We've also implemented integration tests and have built an autonomous testing for continuous integration. This also is showing into the quality of our code for the testnet. One thing to mention is that the prototype we've first written was not an optimization point. It was just the fastest means to validate our hypothesis. This was also visible in the throughput of our prototype, where we managed to have only around 100-120 transactions per second per shard. But now going forward with the testnet, I think we showcased early this year a demo of our testnet where we've reached a 30 times improvement in throughput. Also, we've included some other improvements since the release of our white paper. We've changed the consensus model. Now we are using a BLS multi-signature scheme for the signing of our blocks, which also allows us to reduce the communication rounds for consensus from previously we had 5 communication rounds, and now we've reduced this only to 2 communication rounds, and this makes the consensus really fast. Also, we have changed the randomness source, the way we calculate the randomness inside our protocol, and we've explained all the details in one Medium post for this. Now we have reached a major milestone. We have a testnet which is stable. We've been testing it for the last couple of weeks. We have the implementation of state sharding and also the secure proof of stake, and we are really excited to showcase this testnet today with you in the live stream. I'll leave Benny.
Yeah, sure. So the idea is that by now you've seen a bit of our progress, how we began, what happened in the prototype, now where we are with the testnet. I'll leave it to Robert to give you an overview of how we are trying to do things, the workflow and everything.
Hello everyone. So we have a great team. Everybody is eager to work, so we have to find a way to make us synchronize better and to move really fast in this space. For this we decided to use Jira and GitHub. And in case of task management, we have 3 weeks for a sprint. Every sprint is coming with a major release. In these 3 weeks, we can implement everything and work together. Then at the final of the 3 weeks, everything has to work. As Adi mentioned, any task and any code which wants to enter the master has to have at least 2 reviewers. And every task is decided by the team, and all the requirements are written, and everything which reaches the master has to pass all the requirements and all the tests possible. I would go a little bit over of our GitHub. because I think everybody is eager to see our GitHub. We have a few components open to the public, and a few of them are still behind the scene. We are keeping our approaches a little bit secret, but we can talk about some of them. In general, we have a lot of people who contribute to our platform, and we have several projects which go from the sandbox to the blockchain explorer to the virtual machine to the K framework. Sometimes we are using a certain set of libraries which are open source, and then we fork them and we improve on them and give back to the community. This we did with the concurrent map as well, which is a sharded cache store. I would go on our main repo, which is our Elrond Go sandbox. Here you have all the code for the blockchain. Here you can see more than 150,000 of lines of code. In this repository, we have 8 core developers who are developing, and in this we are really proud to see how fast we are moving through this space. If we are looking at our activities and how much are we doing in like last 24 hours, we had more than 3,000 lines of code with all the reviews and everything. This is only for the blockchain protocol, not speaking about the virtual machine or the blockchain explorer. For the last month, we have more than 30,000, so we are moving with 8 to 10,000 lines of code per week, really fast. More than our development, we are keeping at least 1 day per week for research, so we are up to date with the state of the art and the new novel architectures, and we can move fast into new implementation and change things. That's what we did with our BLS consensus, and that's what we will do with security and zero knowledge proofs and all the major things we have to reach in our blockchain. Last month we focused a lot on stabilization to make this network really close to a mainnet, and to have all the features bulletproof as much as we could. And we did a lot of implementation and optimization on metachain to eliminate any bottlenecks there, and to work on our storage implementation to make a better use of our system and to have a faster way of processing. I think that's all for now. I would leave Lucian to continue with the testnet.
Sure. Benjamin? Yeah. First, I think we will still cover one important aspect, and that is the Elrond VM. I'll let Andrei to cover this and tell you more about what we've been trying to do there.
Hi, my name is Andrei, and I'm in charge with the Elrond VM, or more precisely Elrond VMs, as you will see. Our focus for the Elrond VM was from the very beginning to create an environment that's available for as many developers as possible, from as many backgrounds as possible, and with as many preferences for programming languages as possible. For us, it was very natural to choose the K framework as a foundation on which to build our VM. For those of you who don't know, K framework is an ensemble of tools to describe syntax and semantics of languages, to generate from those syntax and semantics implementation workable interpreters, and also, last but not least, to perform formal verification on programs. On this K framework, there are already implemented quite a number of virtual machines. It's quite popular in the blockchain world. nowadays. We've chosen three of these languages to integrate with our network. The first, which is almost ready and tests are running fine, is called YellowVM. YellowVM is the flavor of LLVM, but for the blockchain. Of course, it's described in K framework. The next two of these will be a version of EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, and also we're planning on integrating WASM, WebAssembly, with Elrond. All three of these are, of course, low-level languages. On top of these low-level languages, we will have tooling for higher-level languages like Solidity. Even as we speak, there's a Solidity to Yellow compiler. So as soon as we release the VM, there should be support for that. As progress, as I said, we have already a workable implementation. We are in the middle of integration of this VM with the Elrond network. So you will hear from this soon. And as a teaser for the future, you might hear about some sort of little game that we might release in the future, but stay tuned for that.
Yeah, thanks Andrei. So I think by now, again, you have a good overview on what's been happening behind the scenes. Now for the very, very interesting part, and actually where the most difficulty comes in, is putting all this into practice and creating a real implementation which differentiates itself from the architecture you've been seeing in the space and so forth. So for this, I'll let Lucian take the mic and go through the demo and explain a bit what we've been trying to do there.
Sure. Hey guys, hello everyone. Thanks for watching, thanks for joining, and also thanks for supporting Elrond. It's been a while since we have been working on this, and we are finally here to release the first testnet, the first version of the testnet. For this testnet, we will have the following setup. So we are gonna use 5 shards and metachain. Each consensus group on each shard consists of 21 validators. Also, in terms of hardware specification, we are using only T2 medium, which is average dual core processor with 4 GB of RAM and consumer grade hardware. Also, we will have this testnet spread on 6 different AVA's data centers, such as US and Europe. And also what it will be quite interesting is that we're gonna start everything from scratch. So basically we're gonna just, everything what we have pre-configured is only the machines are already deployed with Ubuntu and Golang. And afterwards we are gonna showcase also for the very first time the Blockchain Explorer. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, I'm just gonna press start. So right now we are launching the Elrond virtual machine, not the virtual machine, the protocol, the binary of the Elrond protocol. And I'm going to switch to the first node. Okay. As we can see, the round will begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This validator is basically a metachain validator, and we will see how the blocks will be start proposing. So the consensus round for this setup is 6 seconds. And as we can see, we have the first metachain block being proposed, and starting the following blocks, we will see on the metachain also the sub shards being notarized and included in the metachain. Okay, I will just move forward and go and see if all other shards are online. Okay. the first shard. So for this setup, as already said, we have 5 shards plus meta chain. The current shard ID is 0, and we are proposing blocks. Everything looks nice here. Let's move forward. Okay, let's see. Current shard ID 1, block 10. Everything looks nice here as well. Forward. Same shard ID 2. So basically this is the third shard which we are running. And fourth one, let's see how it looks. Also, I guess if you guys want to add anything, please just
until you can check the shards if they are online and so forth. Maybe Sebi can add a bit about the consensus.
Hi guys, I'm Sebastian. Happy to be part of Elrond team. About consensus, we initially for the consensus use the Ballerina win scheme, which needs 5 rounds, in which all the validators from the consensus group work together for the next block to be proposed. Afterward, we move forward and we have implemented the BLS scheme, which needs only 2 rounds for the consensus to be achieved. This approach brings us a lot of improvements, and I want to point out here at least 3 of them. The first, I'll mention that the network communication has been reduced, as now we need only 2 rounds instead of 5. The second, it brings us a faster finality, as now the round could be reduced with almost 50-60%. And third, our throughput also has been increased, as now in one block we can put much more transactions than before. This is because of the only the 2 rounds of this mechanism, which gives us a lot of time for computation and so on. And yes, what is most important here is that this consensus mechanism is already implemented and used in this testnet, which yes, guys, is already launched. And we have a block.
Sure.
Number.
We already have, right now is the block height 36. If you want to come over and just read something, we can share the screen and just make some comments, some notes, let everyone explain a bit what's happening here. For example, right now we are seeing here the block ID 0, right?
And we also have a round and a nonce. That means that until now, in each round, 1 block has been proposed. This is, let's say, a hit rate of 100%. Of course, there could be some blocks in which, or some rounds in which no block would be proposed, but this is not a bad sign. Or if they are not achieve the consensus, they will try the next round and so on.
Of course. Okay, we can also take a look maybe a bit at the meta chain. So here is
we can see the meta chain block, which notarized all the headers, which arrived from the shard. We have now 5 shards, and it seems that all the 5 shards were notarized here.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, I will just move forward and start putting some transactions in block. Just a second. Before that, I will invite you guys to take a look at the following web page. So we have just released the first version of Elrond Blockchain Explorer. It's basically, as you can see, is
brand new.
It's brand new. I will just refresh the page and see if we can see some blocks here. Okay, so the current round is for 55 already. We have five shards up and running, a peak TPS of 0, total transaction 0 because we haven't generated any. So everything, basically, if you were focused at the presentation from Robert here next to me, he was, if the last commit in the Blockchain Explorer was basically 35 minutes ago, which we kind of make it up in time. Thanks guys, thanks everyone. It was really nice. We are really happy to share with you. So just take a look at testnet.elrond.com, and I will start proposing some blocks and generating some transactions in each shard, so that things will populate here and you will be able to take a look. Also, what is important here is, as already said, we have just released the first version. This is a very early version of the testnet explorer. We have our main focus was on the core protocol, on the consensus, peer-to-peer, and basically on the state sharding problem. And we are basically the first network which will also have a decent throughput live showcased with everything what's happening actually under the hood. So let's move forward. I will go back to the nodes. So basically, besides the consensus of 21 validators in each shard, this is only for this very first version of the testnet. On the following days, we will patch the network and we will extend the validator set to a bigger number. So basically, we will have 400 consensus
Nodes per shard.
Yeah, so 400 nodes per shard, and the consensus size will be about 63 nodes, 63 validators. We will extend, as already said, in the following days to a bigger network, bigger settings, also more feature on the testnet, and also on the Explorer for any of you who's looking at it right now. Okay, let's move forward. I will just say, okay, let's make sure we are in the shard 0. I will just start a new screen here. Okay. Let's take a look. I have already prepared a file, which basically, yeah, I was telling you before that besides the 21 nodes, which are validating right now each shard, we also have some other players also in this testnet. We have the observers. Basically, the observers are not participating in the consensus group, are just participating in are just bootstrapping the network, bootstrapping the blocks and the transactions, and also being able to broadcast and generate transactions for this setup. So for this, I will just go into my script and see, okay, for this first node, I will generate 2,500 transactions for shard 0 every 12 seconds. I will just start, let's say, okay, shall I start?
Just to jump
in and give you some context here until Lucian puts in the transactions.
Yeah.
What's happening in the network right now is, if you have the network running, there's only one problem. You have a lot of high throughput, but you don't have transactions coming in. So for this specific purpose, we have put in some specific nodes which are called observer nodes, through which we basically just put in as many transactions as possible. For this, Lucian has prepared the script, and for each of the 5 nodes we are using, we just put in transactions and they will be processed. He tries to put in as many as possible so we can also see the throughput possibility of the test.
Yes. So basically I will start first of all with 2,500 transactions generate every 12 seconds on each shard. So we have just configured the first shard. I will move forward and do the same process on all 5 shards, and then I'll we're gonna just take a look at the nodes, how the nodes are acting, basically how everything works. Also take a look at the Explorer right away, and afterwards just try to speed up the network, puts even more transactions per second, even more transactions in each block, and also trying to make the round even shorter of generating the transactions. Maybe if any of you guys want to add something, or if you want to come by and take a look and comment on what I'm doing here.
Again, I can fill in the space until it happens for you to have an idea. So, as I've said, if you have a network, you basically need a way to generate transactions in order for you to be able to demonstrate the throughput of the network. So this is what's happening right now. The usual problem you have is that you cannot generate enough transactions to see the upper limit of the network. So we will basically try this in several steps. Lucian will try to feed the network and flood the network with transactions, and then flood with a higher number of transactions, and then we will be able to see all this in real time. I think it is very important for us also to mention that this is a good synchronization point between the what has been happening behind the scenes with the team and so forth, and our community and people that support Elrond for a lot of time. We will try to do live streams and discussions with the community and technical people and so forth from time to time, just to keep everyone in sync. But this is a good starting point, and again, we are very, very excited to share this with all of you. So just checking on Lucian to see what the progress is on his front.
Sure.
Do you have any blue screen?
No, not yet. So basically, we already have in the shard number 0 37,500 transactions, and in the last block, as you can see here, for example, we have included all the transactions which were in pool. So 2,500 transactions were proposed for this block. Also, hit rate for this shard still stays at 100%. Just back on the starting node, basically we have spread the instances in different locations, and also try to maximize a bit of latency and the network complexity, just to validate all the core infrastructure. And we will add complexity in the following weeks, and we'll try to keep everyone posted with the results. So let's move forward. This is basically, I have changed to another node here. On the back screen, I have the observers which are generating transactions on each shard, 5 shards, and right now I'm trying to connect to one of the consensus nodes and also try to see what's happening, basically what are the nodes doing right now. And yeah, let's move on. So 50,000 for the first shard already. I'm going to connect to another node. Okay, let's see, this should be shard number 1. Okay, shard number 1, 35,000 transactions already generated. There's a slightly difference between the shards, because it took me a while to start the scripts on each observer. I will do the same. Okay, let's see, this is shard number 3, 27,500 transactions, and 2,500 in pool, and one more, I guess, or 2 more. So let's see. Danny, can you give us an intro? How's everyone doing? How's the community?
Yeah.
Everything on track?
With the community.
Yeah. I was asking because I'm not able to watch right now what's happening on the community channel and so forth. So maybe you can just give two words on that.
Yeah, everything seems fine. Everyone is very supportive, and we can see.
Yeah, just come closer to me.
guys, where should I take?
Here.
Take a look.
Okay, maybe you can just take.
Hey guys, so far everything seems fine. Everyone is very supportive and we love this. It's greatly appreciated. We hope that we can keep this up and to be as transparent with you as we can. So yeah.
Yep, awesome.
You can switch back to me. I guess we already have some numbers. So basically all the shards have been already processing more than, let's see, the last shard has alone only more than 40,000 transactions. Let's switch the Explorer and see what's happening here. So the whole setup which we showcased right now has already processed 262,000 transactions with a peak TPS on average of 1,666, what a number, and a current TPS of 609 transactions. The current round is 166. I'm really happy that everything seems to be stable and looks nice. Also, we have some features here. For example, if you go and click on the shard or on the block, so you can also see how many transactions were included in this block, who was the block proposer, and so forth. We also will be adding other features on the Explorer side, I guess starting tomorrow. So just please stay tuned, keep watching the Explorer, keeping an eye on it. We'll see how it looks. And okay, going back to our nodes, basically we have reached right now only 1,890 transactions per second. Yeah, per second, a peak of 1,890 per second. And I'm going to just go back and tune up the numbers a bit, maybe for a short term, just to see how the network reacts. So on the one tab here we have the nodes generating transactions and so forth, and on the other one we can just monitor the consensus group and see what's happening. Okay, so
what I think would be very interesting is to feed a bit more.
Yeah, I'm doing
right now. So basically we have only
2,500 transactions generated every 12 seconds. And I will just, for a first step, take or just double the number by reducing the 12 seconds by 6, let's say to 6 seconds, and see what's happening. Just a second. So okay.
Maybe just to give
an overview. So we will basically try to do 2 rounds of speeding up the throughput, so you can see how much more it can increase. Lucian will try to speed up things in the sense that we are now not constrained in terms of throughput, but constrained in terms of how many transactions we can generate and feed the network with. If we cannot generate enough, then the live throughput cannot go high enough, but this is what we'll try. We'll try this basically 2 times, and then we'll each time monitor the stats again, just to see an overview. I just want to outline that this all is the first testnet. We're demonstrating adaptive state sharding and secure proof of stake. We're really excited, and as Lucian mentioned, the last version of the Explorer is brand new in the sense that 30 minutes before the demo, everything has been put in place. So
yes, but we are very confident in our work, and we know it's going to work.
Exactly. So,
I will just make another note. So basically what we have done the last couple of days is not just running a single testnet internally, but running more I cannot do this same time. So we have basically run multiple stress tests, multiple setups of test nets, each containing more or equal to five shards spread in different locations, testing different scenarios such as only cross-shard communication with really big load on it, such as bootstrapping, for example, observers and so forth, or joining the network with other participants and bootstrapping the whole status, the whole peer-to-peer communication and the load and the average of the network as well. There are really tons of details. I will just move back and.
So as Radu mentioned, in the meantime, the idea is that a lot of work has been put into this. We are extremely happy to showcase, and I think you'll see a process of how fast this can go live, because a lot has been achieved, and this is not only a major milestone for the team, but also a very important milestone for the blockchain space, because things change when you have a 1000x improvement in performance, and this is exactly what Elrond stands for, and I'm sure a lot of developers and technical people will get excited, and we are very much looking forward to having them in part of the community and so forth.
Okay. So basically we have only a slightly increase here, because basically our network was able to process and include all the transactions every block, so there were not more than 2,500 transactions proposed in the same time. Also, as you can see, for example, there are blocks where the network doesn't have any transactions to include, and for that reason we will just go back, I guess, to about 8 seconds, but rather generate 7,500 transactions per second every 8 seconds on each shard, just to speed up the things even more. Okay, 8.
Yeah, so after we do the demo, which will still last probably another 10 minutes, we'll do a summary of everything, and then we'll have an Ask Me Anything session where we'd love to take some questions from the community and give some answers and sync some more. I'll also share a few information on the round which we'll announce. So we have basically closed our first round. All this progress we've come up with has been self-funded, and I think this is very important. This is a different thing that we've done, and we're very proud of it. Now, at this point, we wanted to take a lot more interesting people in to share in what we're trying to build, to help with different aspects. And for each investors, we've tried to take only people that could add significant value to Elrond, either help on the technical feedback and developer part, or with business development, or with marketing, or with local communities. So each of the investors has been going through this process. We're already discussing the next round, and we'll announce things about that at a later stage when it becomes legally feasible to do so. So yeah, a lot of that work is behind us right now. This means that we can focus a lot more on the product, on shipping things, because as you know, a lot of energy goes into this when you're trying to raise funds. A lot of energy can go into that direction, but at this point, since we're closing that, we can focus again very much on the front of the testnet and develop that really fast. Now, in addition to all this, 2 or 3 points which I think I'll add after Lucian maybe has another update if the
Sure. So basically, we have almost every block, including all the transactions the shard has in pool. So, for example, right now we had only 7,500, and as already mentioned before, in pool. And right now, so in this block, for example, we have included all the transactions. Just move forward, and basically it's the same for all the shards. I'm just gonna take a look at the Explorer, and right now we have 6,458 and a total of 1,200,000 transactions per transaction processed already.
While talking.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for
helping. Yeah, so we might be able to just do another short upgrade. Let's see, maybe 10,000 transactions generated in each shard every 8 seconds, and see how it goes. And then afterwards we will go back to 2,500. Or maybe a bit less overnight, and leave it for you guys to take a look at how things work. However, as already mentioned, we will patch the network on almost every few days, and we'll try to keep you up to date with everything what we are going to include in the newer versions.
Okay, so
I'll do the work here, and you can talk.
Yeah, so again, just to share a few aspects, I'll try to do a summary until we can maybe see the last demo of the network with an even higher throughput. As we've seen, we wanted to share a bit of what it takes to start a project like Elrond, what the process looks like of building things, and we've been through a lot of interesting lessons. But we are extremely excited to reach this point where we can demonstrate what we proposed in the paper and have a running testnet which is much more advanced than any other architecture in the space. Now, I do want to again point out what this means for the space, because I think once this is out and people will be able to use it, we will see some very important implications, because everything changes essentially when you can have a 1000x improvement in performance, and we have seen this repeatedly. Now it's time for Elrond to offer the developers, offer the founders or startups that want to build something in the space a really compelling platform, which does not offer only performance, which is very necessary at this point, but also very high flexibility, as you saw with our VM, because you will be able to write in several languages and then be able to use this very performant architecture. And then last but not least, I also want to touch a bit on the next steps. So what we are doing right now is demonstrating and releasing publicly some of the information we've been working on for a lot of time. Now we want to start this process and set this as a sort of standard or example of how things should be done with the community, where we share a lot more information, try to communicate a lot more closely, and get not only the developers but also business people and marketing people and people from all over the world to participate, communicate, and be part of what we are trying to build. This will happen over the several couple of weeks. So each week on Tuesday we want to release some more information. This means that the next week we will release the wallet binaries so people can send transactions themselves, see what's happening behind the scenes, do some stress testing. We're trying to also prepare everything for the game of stakes. We will announce in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks from now, essentially 2 weeks from now, and then starting with that point, we want to release some more of the code just to make sure that people and developers especially have access to what we're doing and can play with the technology, because the game of stakes part, as some of you may be aware, is a game through which we turn stress testing, penetration testing into a competitive play within the community in order to discover bugs, improve the network, and build the community. We want this process to continue. We will essentially, to give you even more information on the future steps, if you zoom out, you will see that we will essentially have 3 versions of testnet until we will launch the mainnet. I think we will advance very fast, especially if you take a look at how fast things have been moving. Our velocity during sprints has grown significantly, and we will keep you up to date on everything on this front. But I think in addition to all this, as Andrei mentioned, we will also share something very interesting for the community to play with. I don't want to give you too much information on that, but it will be a very interesting and fun game to showcase some of the work we've been putting on this. A last point, which I'll touch upon, and I just want to first check if Lucian is.
So still 6,500 transactions per second as a peak, but the thing is that we are generating every 8 seconds, so basically we don't get that every second. If we include all the transactions, all the 10,000 transactions in every block, every round, so basically there's not enough transactions in the pool to make a higher TPS of the network. We will generate, and I will just reduce the time again one more time for generating 10,000 transactions on each shard every 6 seconds. So it should be equal to the consensus round. So we will have every round, every round basically in all chart fields filled with 10,000 transactions. Just to showcase the numbers we have spoken in the white paper, I guess, with even less shards than yeah.
Okay, now the last point, and with this we'll probably conclude the demo and everything and start the AMA session, is that right now the state sharding problem and the secure proof of stake problem are essentially solved. It will take a bit of time for people to assimilate this and see this themselves, be able to test it and so forth, but these are solved problems. With this, an enormous amount of implications will come in the space, and I think the next couple of months will be extremely exciting for the blockchain space. In addition to this, I will pose a very interesting challenge for every blockchain project out there which is working on solving technical problems and is mostly solely focusing on the technical problems. I think the most important and pressing problem in the space in the coming months, which will become obvious and will become the elephant in the room, is not the technical problem, which, as we've seen, we have solved and have a lead on that, but it's rather the distribution problem. How do you gather the community? How do you gather an audience? How do you build a real audience around the project, around the highly performance architecture? given that several projects are trying this. And if we take a step back and zoom out a little bit more, I think it's even more striking to think about things in the following way. We are in the very, very early days of the blockchain space right now, and we only have something like 25 to 35 million people in the blockchain space participating. Now, if you think about this, and then think about how many people there are on the internet, namely that we've exceeded 4.2 billion people, you should start thinking about why everyone is focusing on the 25 to 35 million people and not focusing on the much larger elephant in the room, namely how we bring new people in. And I'm very excited to only mention a few things about a new product we've been working on in addition to the testnet, which we will hopefully be sharing information soon about, which addresses this distribution problem in a very unique way and is combined with the architecture, providing a very, very unique competitive advantage into our moves in the next following months. So we are quite advanced with that product as well. Don't want to mention too much on it, just want to say that we're almost there. We will share information very soon about it, and it addresses what we think is the next major problem in the space. Combining this with our architecture puts us into a very new scenario where we're trying to bring blockchain to the masses by making blockchain invisible. So that's all on that.
Yeah. I'll take
Over again. I'm taking over the shards. So I have just raised again the numbers and play with it. I have raised basically from we started with 2,500 and right now we are at 12,000 every 6 seconds, I guess. Yeah, every 6 seconds it is. And as you can see, all the transactions basically are included every block, and we have nothing, almost nothing left in the pool. So right now we have only 12,000, and then the 12,000 gets included, and the uptime and the heat rate of this shard of the consensus group is 100%. So I'm just switching back to the Explorer, and we have 9,000 transactions, 120, a peak of 9,000 transactions showcased. I'm just gonna switch back, turn the observers and the transaction generation process a bit lower, and we'll I guess leave my colleagues to make some other notes on the tech part as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for this discussion. We wanted to share this with you. Thank you from the whole team. Let's continue a bit with the AMA session. It's important again to note that these problems that I mentioned, state sharding and proof of stake, are essentially solved, and we'll see the implications in the coming weeks and months. And the next important thing will be to continue the conversation with the community and get your feedback and hopefully your participations into during the next couple of weeks as we share more information, share the game of stakes information and so forth. So I'll ask Dan if he can come up with a notebook just so we can, Danny, so we can see some of the questions from the community, if there are any. We are now essentially starting the AMA session. Let's see if we have any questions from the community. Let me check a bit. So this will be much more relaxed. setting.
Actually, we can start the questions from now on, guys. So if you feel free, just go ahead and ask questions one at a time. I'm sure some of you already prepared some questions. So just go ahead and shoot. We're here for you.
Yeah, awesome. Let's see within testnet nodes and shards. What kind of many devices are there in the testnet clones, the testnet nodes? So one of the interesting question is, will the testnet nodes and shards be a part of the mainnet? I think this specifically refers to what we have right now. Yeah, I think you can, Adrian.
So as Benny mentioned, we'll have several releases. So we are trying to add more features to the testnet as we stress test each of them. So this basically answers your question. We will have different nodes running in the mainnet. Probably you will also come with your own nodes to join the network. We will also provide several nodes as well. So as soon as we can form a few shards and we have everything validated, then we'll probably start the mainnet in that setup.
I would just add on this. So we will add some more complexity to the network the upcoming weeks, as Adrian said, but also in terms of a way of doing how Cosmos did with the game of stakes. So we will try to launch the first sharded architecture or the first sharded testnet, public testnet architecture in a decentralized manner, and see how it goes, and also see how it goes with the economics and everything we have prepared. So will be really nice to have as many as of you registered and subscribed. We will share the form the upcoming days. My fully focus was on delivering this and having everything alive, and we will release the further updates to the upcoming weeks. But also in terms of game of stakes, I guess in the next couple of 1 or 2 weeks we will start the registration process, and will be great to have as many as of you there.
Yeah, I think another interesting question I see is if we will release more information about partnerships we have. Yes, the answer is yes. We have had a lot of discussions with projects in the space. There are actually some interesting projects. We've had discussions over the last few months, and we will share more information on this in the next weeks. As I've mentioned, next Tuesday we share more information both on the testnet version, what's been happening, how it's what the status is, and also some new information regarding partnerships, what we are trying to achieve there, and so forth. So a lot more information on that will come.
Okay, I have a question from Alina Ron. When will the testnet be available to us? So the testnet will be available to you once the wallet is ready, and you can stress test our testnet. In some more weeks to come, we are going to make more and more of our code available to everybody, so that they also can compile their node. Lemon Fett says, Elrond team wrote everything from scratch. Does this include the hash function? What hash function do you use?
No, there are several stuff we didn't try to improve because it would be tremendous work to try and improve them. So hash functions, we already know what happened with Iota. So we are trying to use what is well established and proven, and this is the case of hash functions. We are using we are using SHA 256. We're using KCAC as well, and also Blake2B. So we are using these hashing functions in different scenarios. Some of them we are using in the protocol for hashing blocks, for hashing transactions, and so on. Some of these hashing functions we're using for the cryptographic layer. For example, in GLS scheme, we are using a sponge hash function. Yeah, so we are using proven solutions for the use cases which we see appropriate.
Okay, Alexander Schaefer said, could Elrond manage the CryptoKitty attack? I would say just bring it on once our mainnet is ready.
Yeah, this is also the point of the testnet. We want you to try and break it, and then we'll fix it.
Sure, sure. So we will,
As already mentioned, back to the game of stakes part. Please make sure that you register, follow us, and start hacking us once we make everything public. Will be really great to have to see how it works.
Another interesting question is if you developed adaptive state sharding and secure proof of stake, does this take away the first mover advantage of Ethereum? I think there are two questions, two answers on this. So first of all, we do appreciate that there is a lot of discussion and progress and research in the space, but we also appreciate that Ethereum has been discussing about this since 2014. So it's been a long discussion. Now they are making really decent progress. What I would say is that Elrond is a really small and focused team compared to Ethereum or other larger teams, and this gives us a very, very agile advantage and the advantage of speed. So as you can see right now, we can already process what we've mentioned in the paper, and this is not highly optimized yet. This is the first version we came up with, and I think you'll see a lot of good surprises in the coming weeks on this. There are obviously other projects trying to implement something similar, and I think we'll have some discussions with other projects as well. We are also in discussion with people who are doing this for Ethereum, but at this point we do not worry about Ethereum. Let's say we keep the focus on shipping things as fast as possible, and if we manage to do it as we proposed or as we target, I think the results will speak for themselves.
Okay, another funny question for Alexander Schaefer. It was the same questions also in the Telegram chat. Why is Daniel without the shoes? We really feel like home here, and I think he's mostly like at home here, and that's why he didn't have his shoes.
And it's mostly like at home because he also spends most of his time here, and as we all do. So yeah, it's basically home.
So one more thing.
Back to the first question, what kind and how many devices are there in the testnet? So right now we are having about 130, so 126 are in the consensus group, so 21 on each shard, and some other observers and other nodes who are actually providing the data, extracting the data from the network to the Explorer you guys have available right now. The other thing is what kind. So we are using T2 medium on AVS. So this is average dual core processor with 4 GB of RAM and really consumer grade hardware, as we are trying to maintain the barriers, the entry point or the entry requirements for the network really as low as possible. Yeah, who owns the testnet? Back to the questions. So this is a private testnet. This is the very first version of the testnet. It's privately owned by Elrond, and we will follow up with the public version the upcoming weeks.
One important question about the partnerships, just to add a few things. So we've already announced a few of the partnerships. One of the partnerships we have with Netopia, which is the largest payment processor here in Romania, and they will essentially integrate Elrond as soon as it's available, and people will be able to use it in more than 6,000 online stores. So from day one. We also have a partnership with Nash, who I'm sure you know of. They are trying to create a really fast and innovative decentralized exchange. They are putting a lot of effort into improving the user experience, which has been very painful in the blockchain space. And we're partnering with them in order to, at some point, integrate Elrond into what they are building, so you can make transfers directly from Bitcoin or Ethereum to Elrond and so forth. Another interesting question, which is also funny, was about team members receiving salary in Elrond. We will definitely implement this at some point. I think this will be very, very interesting.
Yeah, there's also another interesting one from Zarkon. What is the feedback of consensus? I'm sure you had some talks over there, and the crypto community is watching you closely, are already afraid of you as competition. Yeah, we had great talks there, and it was really interesting because we got more motivated, seeing that most of the projects were really way behind us. We didn't make a lot of noise in the space, but getting there and finally talking with people, we realized that we were really advanced compared to all other teams. So yeah, it was nice talking with them. Also, on the technical level, there were some really great talks we took notice of, and yeah, probably we'll be in touch with some of the people there.
Yeah, so coming on this, we've had discussions, just to name a few of the projects. Yeah. We've had discussions with the guys at Ethereum. We've had discussions with Cosmos. We've had discussions with Harmony, with Near, even Quark Chain. We even had some
Solana as well.
grilling sessions at one of the events. So it was really fun, good, productive discussions. What I think is another point which is really interesting and good is I see questions about where we will integrate Elrond or what we will use it for. And I think this is a very good question. We've been having a lot of discussions with especially larger companies who are building technical infrastructure in Germany and other countries, but Germany especially. And people are extremely interested in having a platform which promises 1000x improvement in throughput and transaction speed. So this is, I think, very, very obvious to them, because most of them have already implemented prototypes in Ethereum and discovered that it does not make sense. If you, for instance, want to use this prototype for machine-to-machine transactions, and I've already written about this, then it takes too long, it is too costly, and obviously you cannot scale it unless your whole fleet of cars is 2-3 cars. And even then you might have some problems. What we've discovered is that they are eager and interested, and this is why we tried to speed up things with the development, because everything depends on development. If we have the product, the whole discussion is very differently. We can demonstrate this and immediately start some hackathons, start some integration pilots and so forth. So all of this will happen. This is why it takes a lot of work for us, and we wanted to first ship the testnet and then focus on the other parts which will come. Have you seen other questions?
Yeah, other questions.
You said the next week wallets will be presented. Yes, we will right now add more features to the Explorer and to the core protocol, and we will try to parallelize the wallet functionality as well. Will we be able to create one or do transactions between us? Yes, you will be able to create wallets to create wallets and also do transactions between yourself.
Another question which is very interesting, I'm sure everybody's thinking about it, is why Elrond? Why we've chosen this name, and
if we'll stick with the name.
Yeah. So I'm sure you know of Lord of the Rings. If not, please look the movie up or read the books. They are extremely fascinating and good reads. The idea with Elrond is Elrond was this guy who was an elf, one of the higher beings which was immortal, very, very powerful, wise, and he wanted to do basically good things despite being immortal and having that much power. And I think it's very interesting because he helped change the course of the world in some particular way by doing his job and helping the guys when they were in trouble and so forth. So this resonates with what we've seen in the space, how the space was and so forth, and what we thought we could bring. And so yeah, I'll let you draw the other.
He also formed the Fellowship of the Ring, so we also have a huge community which is our fellowship.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a good starting point for us to think about what we are trying to do and what we want Elrond to be like.
Another question from Alexander Sheffer. Why not start in Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, or even Malta to roll out the real-life projects?
I think the discussion here is we are trying to see where the real companies are and have discussions where they are. So what we see is that Liechtenstein and the other parts are places where you can found a company, create a company and structure it, but not necessarily where you'll find the interesting technical companies building cool stuff and having large communities and so forth. So this is the reason why we are trying to have the discussions with companies from all over the world. If we discover that a certain part of the world is very well developed, has this kind of needs, understands blockchain and wants to use it, we'll go there and do whatever it takes to have the discussions and present our solution, and then we'll take it from there.
Yes, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, and Malta are quite small countries compared to Germany.
Did you want to?
I will. I want to add something else. So we have some new stats here. So we have already processed in the meantime 4,500,000. Yeah, for 4.5 million transactions in this testnet with this current setup.
Yeah, awesome. One person from the community asks if we will put some tests from Tolkien in the Genesis block. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, that will happen. Hackathons, when we are currently focused on shipping and will announce in the coming weeks probably the first hackathons. We want to have some pretty soon, but first want to make sure that things are stable enough and also the VM is integrated, because we want to have the smart contracts part and so forth. And we are very excited about this and want to share it, but first need to make sure that it's really something on which people can build and have as much flexibility as possible.
Yeah, there's another question. What are the upcoming blockchain conferences you will participate? Asia? I don't think we thought much about the next one, but we definitely have in plan to hold a meeting. Maybe Lucian can say more about it.
Sure. So once we are launching once we are approaching the next phases, and we are releasing also the Elrond VM as a first step towards the community and the developer community, we will start onboarding and educating everyone, or the community, or all the developers from the community here around. And as a next step, we will try to, as we are approaching the mainnet, the upcoming months, we will organize an event here in Romania, first of all, where we'll try to invite lots of our friends from different projects and talk on different aspects such as sharding, consensus, also lots of technical matter, but also on the part of the economics, the governance, maybe also as well legal, yeah.
So just to give you a broad guideline of how we are trying to do things, up until this point, the whole focus has been to make things as efficient as possible inside the team, to make sure that we can move as fast as possible, everything is in place, we have people with which we can build those rockets I've mentioned before. And right now we are transitioning to a stage where we will focus much more on public communication, on trying to share the information with our community, with the people, technical people and so forth, and try to get them involved. This means that we will have some very interesting campaigns with the community channels we have on Telegram, Twitter and so forth. We have some really great people there that are supporting this us daily, and we appreciate their support. We also will have some more information and discussions with targeted audiences and with people that are from Asia, from Korea, China, Russia, Europe and US, especially to target those markets and get the message out, raise awareness about Elrond. And then last but not least, we will also have some PR coming out, just again sharing this information with as many people as possible. Now, in addition to this, we will have some ecosystem programs focusing on partnerships and developers. It means that we will have the game of stakes part, some hackathons, some university programs, and we will try to parallelize all these aspects. And then we will also try to share some more information on the partnerships, on the discussions we've been having and so forth. So just tried to give you a broad summary on how things could look in the coming weeks. Any other interesting questions you guys see?
I saw here is not really a question but a request for Lucian. It's like they said, Lucian, please do the moonwalk for us.
Sure. This is a good one. I saw an interesting question mentioning if we had any discussion with Elon while in New York. I can't comment on that.
What happened in New York stays in New York.
Yeah, I guess that happened after your tweet.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So
why are you smiling all the time? Because we launched our testnet.
Yeah, we finally managed to showcase it, and we're happy that everyone can get a good look at it and come with feedback. And it's good to finally reach this milestone.
Everything else is secondary.
Yeah, even rest.
Yeah. So I think
also the shoes. Also the shoes.
I guess two more questions there.
If you
This one.
Do you plan on launching an SDK? When exactly should we expect it? If yes,
I guess once
we finalize the first version of the public testnet and integrate also the Elrond VM, we will move towards more APIs and functionalities, and of course we will have, I guess, in the upcoming 2 months, a finalized or a first version or fully functional version of Elrond SDK.
Yeah, even a lot faster. So
Tell just 2 months, but we will just start working on it tomorrow morning.
So a lot of things have been put in place, but we want to take the time to make sure, again, step by step, things are communicated and processed and shared with the community. An SDK is very important for us, and we will probably have it once we launch the game of stakes part, or at least the first guidelines. and then from there we will add complexity and try to complete this.
Yeah, there's another question talking about governance. Will Elrond enable public vote for protocol upgrades or tweaks? We have seen the likes of Cosmos having the possibility to adjust different parts of the protocol. Of course, we thought about the governance. We already have a concept in place, and this will be an on-chain governance solution. We plan to enable validators to vote on that. The proposals for the new improvements will for the improvements will mainly be done by Elrond, but of course suggestions from community and anyone else can come, and we'll do a short listing of all these proposals, and we'll choose we'll maybe sort them in a priority order, and then try to implement each of these. Of course, after the repository will be open, we will expect also people from the community to join the development effort, and probably will also progress much faster on whatever we want to implement further.
Yeah, what I would add to that is this will obviously take some time, so we will probably release a paper on economics, which has been in the works for some time and in constant discussion internally. We'll want to publish that pretty soon. We'll also have a paper with proposals on governance. This is obviously a good discussion to have. We very much appreciate feedback from the community. This will be a longer process because it's much easier to solve right now the technical problems, and a much more difficult problem to solve the governance problem. Although we have a technical solution already, as Adrian mentioned, we want to make sure that we first take the time to communicate and have a discussion with the community. The community understands what they can vote, participate in, and so forth. And then we also want to encourage them to take part, share information, and so forth. But this obviously cannot happen from one day to another. But we have things in place, and we'll gradually propose them and request feedback. And in the meantime, any kind of suggestions you guys might have about things, whether you read some stuff or discover something interesting, feel free to post stuff in our Telegram or on Twitter. We are there the whole day. Even if you have technical questions or other kind of discoveries, we try to stay up to date with what's happening and try to be very, very close with the community, and obviously appreciate your feedback and support very much.
I will just, since this is a testnet release, I will just love to add another technical note and some more stats. So I'm looking at current ID 2. So we are right now looking at the shard number 2 at the one of the validators of the consensus group for this shard. And we have processed only within this shard 1 million transactions already since we have started the talk, and we have 100% uptime on each round happening every 6 seconds. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I think it's great that we could share everything with you. At this point, I think it's time to wrap things up. Thanks a lot for the discussion, for the support, and yeah, looking forward to hearing your feedback in the coming days, sharing more information, and stay tuned as we will release even more information. Now, the cool thing you should go ahead and think about is what cool and interesting applications you can finally build on a blockchain that works at the speed and performance that makes sense in a real world setting. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.